Ongoing permanency workers, you may think that you're going to be always filling out the placement tab, but that may not be true because if an intake worker actually places the child, it will be their responsibility to fill this out even though we're under the case side of trails. So whoever is the placing caseworker, I just want to say that these next boxes that I'm about to describe, please fill out in great detail. This is an area that ARD, the Administrative Review Division, who does the audits for the state of Colorado, likes to see a lot of detail specific to each individual child. So the first question is, describe your efforts to place with relatives. So in this box, we're going to list what are all the efforts that we did to try to place either with traditional or non-traditional kin. We know that it's less traumatic for kids to be placed with people that they know versus in foster care. At least to begin with, it's less traumatic. So we want to indicate our efforts to place with relatives. Were we able to be successful or not? In this case, Janessa has been placed with Mabel Walnut, who's a foster family home. So we would need to indicate what aunts, uncles, grandparents, etc. we tried to place with and how come we were unsuccessful in a relative kinship placement. The next question as we continue, describe what factors have been assessed that indicate this placement will provide a safe environment for this child. So in this box, we're going to indicate how come Mabel Walnut is the best foster parent for Janessa. And the answer would not be Mabel had an opening. We want to be really specific. So for example, if Janessa has speech issues, we would want to say that Mabel has received training and has worked with previous speech therapy providers or something to that instance. She's been a foster parent for 15 years. She's completed so many hours of training annually. So essentially, you're indicating why this particular provider is the best placement for this particular child to keep them safe. The next box talks about how this placement is essentially going to maintain connections for this child, whether it be proximity to their neighborhood, cultural connections, community connections, things of that nature. The thought behind this particular box and documenting is that it's already traumatic for kids to be removed from their parents, and so why is it that we would want to add to that trauma by like removing them from their community, their soccer team, their teacher, their doctor, their dentist, things of that nature. So we want to talk about how is Mabel Walnut's placement going to preserve those connections. And so that's somewhere where you're going to want to put a lot of detail in as well. There's also an area at this box for indicating if you're going to have specialized evaluations. So for example, if Janessa was going to do a speech therapy evaluation, you could list that here. And then finally, you're going to explain how, oops, I went too far. You're going to explain how this particular placement is the least restrictive, most family-like setting. So we always want to try to keep kids in the least restrictive, most family-like setting. You'll learn about that in the fundamentals, and this is where you'll document those efforts. Then we also want to indicate if the siblings were placed together. So generally, we would hope that we would be able to say yes, but if we answer no, or if we answer it's not necessary to meet the child's needs, you'll notice that the yellow mandatory box comes up where we have to justify how come we didn't place the siblings together. So no would be, for example, if you can't find a placement to take all three. Not necessary to meet the child's needs would be more specific. For example, let's say there are two siblings and one has been sexually perpetrating on the other sibling, and to keep them safe, we're not going to place them together. That would be an example of why you would select that particular option. So in this instance, Janessa was placed with her siblings. As I mentioned, the health passport, the IEP, the school records, those things are going to be mentioned in another microburst video. But essentially, we're just marking here in the placement tab, essentially, have we completed the health passport? Where is it kept? Do we have a current individualized education plan, IEP, from the school? Do we have school records? What medical needs does this child have? Are immunizations up to date? Is the child taking any medications? And in the health passport, which you'll learn in another microburst video, you're going to learn a lot more information on how you document this in much more detail. Finally, for the placement tab, I want to talk about the medical exam and the dental exam because that's a really important area that sometimes counties struggle on. being in compliance with, because foster parents and kinship parents actually get kids to the doctor and dentist. But in rule, it says that we have to have medical exams scheduled within 2 weeks of placement and dental exams scheduled within 8 weeks of placement. That doesn't necessarily mean completed, and you're going to fill this out again in the health passport. But it's really important that placing caseworkers remind the foster parents to get those exams completed. And then ongoing, you'll do a medical exam once a year and a dental exam twice a year. And dental exams are only for kids that are 3 and up, unless a pediatrician indicates that they have a need to go sooner. And last are the Indian Child Welfare Act requirements being completed for eligible children. You'll learn much more about that in fundamentals as well. So that completes it for the placement tab of Trails. And again, just a reminder, after you fill all of this out for the first child, Janessa, you're going to want to go back and you're going to want to fill that out for the other siblings. So I don't want to save my changes, but then I would go into placement and pick the other two siblings, excuse me. And that's it for this video.